Welcome to Sport Management 750D, Sociology of Coaching. My name is Mark Vermillion, and I'm the chair for the Department of Sport and Leadership Studies. And I'm very excited about this particular class. It really is kind of the epitome of what we do here in this particular department. We have degrees in both sport management and organizational leadership and learning. So leadership really is at the core of a lot of what we do. And to me, this is just my opinion here, but coaches are a great example of the integration of leadership in a variety of different settings involving a lot of different people. So that's what we want to do in this particular class, is really kind of start this journey of thinking about coaching and how we can move the institution and the occupation of coaching forward. Before I get started on all that with the purpose and the content and the approach of the course, those types of things, in the past, because this is an online asynchronous course, students have, asked to hear a little bit about who I am. This is not meant to be egotistical or anything like that. This particular recording is really similar to almost like what you would do on a first day of a traditional in-person type of class. So who am I? Obviously, my name is Mark Vermillion, as I've already said. And I'm someone who's been here at Wichita State for a number of years, and I'm really excited about not just this class, but really being able to think about how ideas of leadership really infuse a variety of different institutional and organizational settings. And I'm kind of interested in all that kind of stuff. I have degrees in history and social science, sociology, criminology, social psychology, that kind of stuff, right? That's criminology. That's kind of my background. I'm very comfortable and very excited and really believe in the power of social science, once it's sort of given a layer of application and those types of things. And whether it's in consulting or, in my number of years of work prior to coming to higher education, this is something that I believe is really important, is that to be leaders or to think about how we work in organizational settings, we need to learn and think about the ideas and the people that are around us. And that's why I really try to infuse everything I do with this whole idea of social science. So that's who I am. In terms of this class, kind of the purpose of it, we'll talk about the class in two different ways, both the purpose and the content. But the purpose is really to, and I think this is really important, to treat coaching with the respect that, in my view, and again, this is just my opinion here, but in some circles, it's not paid the attention or given the respect that I think it's due. With how impactful coaches are, with the amount of things that coaches have to balance, not just in terms of logistics, but also in terms of managing different stakeholder groups. It's a really demanding field. It's a very demanding occupation. It's both physically demanding, but it's also emotionally draining. And so I think it's really, really important to really treat coaching with respect. And my personal approach is, to me, coaching is an applied interdisciplinary social science. You have to work with people, so you have to understand sort of social dynamics. You have to understand organizational best practices. You have to understand how to engage sort of the individual psychology of athletes or coaching colleagues, or whether you talk about parents or guardians or other stakeholder groups. You have to be able to do a lot. You have to know a little bit about biomechanics. You have to know a little bit about perhaps exercise science and nutrition. But then you also need to understand best practices in management. So there's a lot there. So that's how I try to approach this, is that coaching and understanding coaching is really important to moving the occupation and the industry forward. And the way that I have chosen to do that is to try to take all this information from the world of social science, sociology being one of those frameworks, not the only one, but one of those frameworks, and try to infuse it with our understanding of coaching. I do think it's probably important here to just call it out and say, look, we'll talk about coaching, but I also recognize and acknowledge that coaching is different based upon the sport, based upon the community in which you are embedded. It's also based upon the level at which you are coaching. Obviously, if you're coaching or involved in youth sports with young people, that's going to be very different than working with middle schoolers or high schoolers or all the different levels in intercollegiate athletics, or if you're talking about semi-pro or even professional athletes. So I do acknowledge that some of the things that we talk about that may be either educator, coach, or scholar, coach centric may not apply to some folks that are hoping to apply their trade at the professional sport level. Okay, so just as you're kind of going through this, and this is kind of where the bleeding from the second purpose down into the third point of content is, what I try to do is provide two things. All right, one, in terms of application, I try to give you a little bit of access and entree to some best practices that were not developed by me. I'm not going to hold myself up here as some sort of amazing coaching expert or anything like that. I try to source ideas and thoughts from people that are far smarter than me, that have been in the trenches working in coaching and working with young people and doing all this kind of stuff for years and years, perhaps decades. So that's one, is we try to provide access to the best practices. And then again, try to show how concepts and theories from social science can really influence a better, more efficient understanding of some of the things that you're trying to do or accomplish within your activities as a coach. I think when you think about someone like the famous coach, Coach Wooden, and those dominant UCLA men's basketball teams in the 1970s, this is someone who took those coaching experiences and frameworked it into eventually an entire theory in terms of coaching and how to motivate and how to get the best out of not just individual athletes, but those that are going to be part of a team environment. In terms of approach, I try to keep things as streamlined and simple. One of the things that you'll probably notice is that there are no assigned books. There are no textbooks in this particular course. It's what I call a low to no cost. It's a no-cost course in terms of textbooks and additional ancillaries and things like that. I spend a lot of time trying to create PowerPoint slides that essentially serve as your textbook. I even will, in some instances, write complete sentences so that every slide that you are viewing on Blackboard is like the page of a particular reading. All of your quiz questions are going to be drawn directly from those notes. And that's how I kind of try to not just keep costs down, but also hopefully make this into a course that is efficient and you're able to get what you need, punch your time card, and move on to whatever's next for you. I will note that in the past, I have recorded, much like this particular audio lecture, I've recorded over every PowerPoint slide so that you had these large audio files or multimedia presentations that you could view. And I bear no ill will to the students, but suffice to say they were not heavily watched. So I've actually cut those out and gone with, again, this much more streamlined approach so that you, whenever you get into the Blackboard shell, you'll see that there's information. You'll have course content areas. You'll get in there. You'll see you'll have specific notes in different PowerPoint presentations. You'll have an activity. You'll have a quiz in each particular section. And then one of the things that you'll find is that we have a required final project. This is a 700 level course, which means that undergraduate students pursuing a bachelor's degree and graduate students pursuing a master's degree can both take it for college credit. If you are an undergraduate student, you need to complete the final project. If you are a graduate student, you need to complete the required final project, but in addition, you have an administrative leadership review project that you need to complete. And this is to satisfy the Kansas Board of Regents requirement that graduate students taking a 700 level course have to do additional work. I think it's really important here to just take a moment and say that this class is not about me telling you information or about my particular views on coaching, although I guess I just did that a few minutes ago. But really, my job is to serve as a facilitator for all of this information. All this stuff is out there, and you all can find it. And my job, in my view, regardless of whether I'm teaching this class, leadership classes, sport management courses, sociology, criminology courses. It doesn't necessarily matter. My job is to be a gatekeeper. My job is to facilitate access for you to understand this information. It's not to sit here and tell you how to coach your team or how to run your organization or anything like that. Hopefully as you kind of go through this, you'll see information. What we would like, sort of the best case scenario, is you learn that information, you understand it, you think about it, you reflect on it, and then down the line you can decide whether you want to incorporate this stuff into your worldview or into your coaching practice. That's kind of how I try to run all of my classes. Just again, a gatekeeper, providing access and entree to information, and hopefully doing it in an efficient way where it saves you some time and provides you an opportunity to really learn some important and useful concepts. Moving forward in the next steps, I think it's probably a good idea if you're new to either Blackboard or WSU, it's probably a good idea to become familiar with it, get on there, kind of surf around, make sure you understand Blackboard's functions. There have been some recent changes to Blackboard, so make sure you're aware and staying up to date on those. I think it's also a good idea to get a sense for how I organize the course. I try not to do too much. There's not a lot of bells and whistles. It's a pretty Spartan Blackboard shell, and you click on things and you grab what you need and you kind of move to the next thing. But I think it's also important to keep an eye on the course schedule, right? I post everything for the class entirely on the very first day, so you have access to all the notes, all the activities, all the quizzes, all the projects, those types of things. I've had students that have finished the class in a day or two. I'm not saying you have to do that. You are more than welcome, and it's all up there so that you can kind of work at your own pace in that regard. However, I do have due dates every week, just to kind of make sure individuals are, it's not building up on them. They're able to get to the next thing. Okay, so the course schedule is going to be really important. Make sure you take a look at that. Finally, there's also a syllabus quiz, which is just that you acknowledge and understand that there are due dates and that we're going to try to run this class the best way that we can, and there's going to be some accountability. Accountability doesn't mean that I'm not going to be flexible. I understand that sometimes life gets in the way. Happens to the best of us. So if you need some assistance or you need to having some trouble balancing some familial or social or professional obligations, these things influence the academic journey. I get it. Just make sure you reach out as soon as possible, and we can more or less work through anything. I think the point here of this particular class is really about almost like a conversation. And I know that's really cliche and kind of corny, but I really look forward to seeing what you all come up with. I'm happy to help out however possible. There are no design class meetings, but if you have questions, you can either send me an email, you can call me here in the office, you can send a message through Blackboard if you want to schedule a Zoom or a Teams and have a little face-to-face, or if you want to come into the office, doesn't matter to me. Happy to meet with you all and talk through whatever it is that you need to do. So that's pretty much the class in a nutshell. If you have any questions, like I said, make sure you get in touch with me. And as we move forward, we want to make sure that you can get in here, get access to the course, and do what you need to do so that you can move on to whatever's next for you. Thanks for being here. I really appreciate it. I'm excited about this particular class in this semester. Good luck as you kind of matriculate your way through the class, and please let me know if there's anything else I can do.